Liberals are getting desperate. You can tell because they're dragging out the old tired lies about guns. Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. I hope you're having a great day. Well, in question period today, it wasn't Leaders' Day, but it was still quite lively. And some of the topics turned to violence on the streets of Canadian cities. And of course, the Liberals tried to narrow that conversation to gun violence. And they dragged out the same old tired lies. I've done previous videos on this, which I'll link in the description. And one of those videos just completely dismantles those lies. I will also link a couple of those videos in the end cards of this video in case you wish to go there after watching this video. But first, let's go and see what was said during question period, and then we'll talk about it.
The honourable member from Kildon and St. Paul.
After 9 years of NDP Liberals, violent crime is up and police have had enough, Mr. Speaker. Frontline officers in Toronto, York, Vancouver, Surrey are all slamming the Prime Minister for his self-congratulatory social media campaign where he promoted his failed handgun policy that has done nothing to stop violent gun crime, which is up, in fact, by 116% since the Liberals took power 9 years ago. When is the Prime Minister going to stop patting himself on the back for his failures and start listening to police?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, one important difference between our government and the Conservative Party is we don't believe assault-style military firearms have their place on Canadian streets. We have made those firearms, Mr. Speaker, illegal. We're taking steps to compensate law-abiding gun owners that purchase these rifles, particularly so we can remove them from the streets. That's something that police officers in my conversations have been very supportive of, and they're very worried, Mr. Speaker, that the Conservative Party have plans to, in fact, evacuate all those important measures. That's not in the interest of public safety.
That's right.
Talk about a pivot. I hope he didn't plant his foot too hard. He could blow his knee out. She was talking about handguns and the handgun ban, not the ban on what they call assault-style firearms, which aren't assault-style firearms. Those were banned in Canada in the 1970s. What they're banning now are sporting rifles, rifles that are used in sport competitions in Canada and are used at the range. Taking them off the street, well, that's just ridiculous, because law-abiding citizens keep them locked up at home unless they're using them at the range. So his saying that taking them away from law-abiding citizens or removing them from the street, well, that's just an out-and-out lie. And he knows it. He's using this term, assault-style weapons, just to scare Canadians. That's all it is. It's a scare, and it's a political move. This has nothing to do with public safety. This is politics. They fear an election could be just around the corner, so they want to roll out this topic again and try to scare Canadians. It's just pathetic.
You know, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to let the police association speak for themselves. To that Liberal minister and to this Liberal Prime Minister from Surrey, BC, quote, the federal handgun freeze fails to address the real issue, which is the surge of illegal firearms coming across our border, ending up in the hands of violent criminals. From Vancouver, BC, quote, stopping legal sales won't stop criminals from getting guns illegally. You're only restricting law-abiding citizens while doing little to address actual gun violence. When is the Prime Minister going to stop working against police, stop going after law-abiding citizens, and start going after the real problem, criminals? When are they...
Mr. Speaker, I was surprised that our colleague raised the issue of border security. Our government, unlike the Conservative government previously, has invested precisely so the Canadian Border Services Agency would be able to interdict these illegal firearms crossing our borders. Mr. Speaker, we work with the RCMP, their policing partners, and Border Services. The Conservatives cut the funding to these agencies, laid off hundreds of Border Services agents, and had in fact plans to cut another 800. The good news, Mr. Speaker, is they lost the 2015 election. We reinvested in those important priorities for Canadians and will continue to do so.
So another pivot. He really has to watch his knees. So here's the thing about that. Yes, Harper did a lot of cuts, primarily because he was trying to save the country from all of the overspending of the previous Liberal governments. And I didn't agree with a lot of what Harper was doing. However, At the time, they didn't have the problems that Canada has now. Under the Liberal policies, crime has skyrocketed, and cross-border smuggling of firearms has skyrocketed. What they're doing is they're trying to patch up all of the problems that they created. That's the reality of it. And still, she was talking about handguns and how focusing on law-abiding citizens is not resolving the problem, and how police services are getting the message and are telling them they're focusing on the wrong problem. But he's ignoring that. Typical Liberal.
The honourable member from Durham.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of NDP Liberals, crime is up because the Prime Minister's policies are failing. The Toronto Police Association says that violent crime is up 78% since these Liberals came into power. Shootings are up 45% since last year. Gun-related homicides up 62% since last year. So when will the Prime Minister start listening to police associations across Canada and admit he's adding to the crime wave, not fighting it?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Procurator General.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate that member's contributions to the House. I just don't appreciate the hypocrisy. What I would say is that assault-style rifles aren't used for hunting deers.
Oh, really? Well, then why is the Canadian government actually paying Americans and Australians to use AR-15s, the very gun that they are claiming are assault rifles, which they aren't, to shoot deer in British Columbia from helicopters, which is highly illegal, instead of allowing real hunters to go out and actually hunt those deer and harvest those deer? I'll put a link in the description to a video or a couple of videos I've done on this. Just for your information, this is complete BS.
That's why we're taking them out of circulation. What I would also say with respect to guns and gangs is that if you don't want guns in our society, then you need to regulate the border. That's why we've invested over $390 million into the CBSA, exact money amounts that were cut by that party. He wasn't there yet, so I can't fault him in particular, but I will fault his party for not doing anything to keep our border safe and to keep guns out of our country.
Another Liberal, another pivot. Of course, this Liberal talks about guns and gangs, and they are responsible for all of the gun crime. So why are you focusing on law-abiding citizens? See, that just doesn't make sense. And yes, you need to tighten up rules at the border, but this Liberal government has pretty much allowed anybody to cross the border. We even have videos from Roxon Road from a couple of years ago, where the RCMP were helping people cross the border, carrying their luggage. How many guns were smuggled through with the help of the RCMP? Well, that might be a question you might want to ask. And this Liberal again brings up assault-style weapons. Well, assault-style weapons, again, were banned in the 70s. He's just lying.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal Minister of Justice continues to reveal just how out of touch this government is. And we have real-time evidence of it. Just less than 3 hours ago, there was a shooting in Toronto near Shepherd and Yonge, not far actually from the Minister of Justice's riding. And in that situation, a person is now lying in the hospital in life-threatening condition. So when will this government actually take responsibility for the crime that it's causing and listen to the police?
I can assure that member that I listen to the police all of the time. And you know what they tell me? They tell me that when you take guns out of circulation, what you do is you help on things like gender-based violence and domestic violence that occurs because women are getting killed because guns are in the homes. When you pass a bill like C-21, you disable that from happening because you ensure that you're keeping women in this country safe. That is a priority, or should be a priority, for this entire parliament. It's just really shocking that that member doesn't get it.
I have previously debunked this in one of my previous videos. That video is called Trudeau's Gun Control Deception Exposed by the Numbers, and it is linked in the description of this video in case you'd like to check it out. The fact is, for law-abiding citizens, the presence of a firearm in a residence does not increase the use of it being used illegally. So what is he talking about here? He's talking about illegal firearms. He's talking about people who've acquired those firearms illegally, primarily from being smuggled in from the United States. Oh, and maybe firearms that were lost by the RCMP. I'll put a link in the description to a video I did on that, which was only a few weeks ago. It is just so ridiculous that the Liberals are trying to paint law-abiding citizens as the bad guy here. They think that seizing property from these law-abiding citizens is the answer, when of course we all know it's not. Anybody with a brain can figure that out. But additionally, what they do is they narrow the focus. They always talk about gun violence. They don't talk about violence. They talk about gun violence, as if the tool is the cause of the violence. The tool is not the cause of the violence. If the tool was not handy, they would use a different tool. And as far as suicide, well, their own studies by the federal government, which I have spoken about in previous videos, again, listed below, has proven that the presence of a firearm in a house does not increase the likelihood of suicide and does not increase the likelihood of violence, at least not a legal firearm. And that's what they're going after, legal firearms. All this talk about removing firearms from Canadian citizens is first and foremost a smokescreen. It's a political move, but you also have to ask yourself, why are they doing this? Why are they focusing on this? Because throughout history, whenever a government has disarmed their population, it has never turned out well for that population. But that's just my opinion. I'd love to know what you think. Put your comments down below. And while you're at it, please like this video, share with your friends and on social media. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and hit that bell notification so you never miss another video. Also, I do have a live stream on Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Pacific time. I invite you to tune in and join in on the conversation. And finally, if you want a firearm legally in Canada, you do have to get a firearms license, otherwise known as a PAL. I happen to teach the courses that are required to get that firearms license. And if you're on Vancouver Island or will be for any length of time, I invite you to look me up through a link in the description of this video. I would love to teach you that course. The link is to my website where you can contact me and we can set up a course. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.